What have I learned from being on YouTube? And what is a real photographer? Let's talk about it. Hey, welcome to another video. You may or may not know that I published 11 novels. The first one being a novel about a guitar player, Dylan James. It's written in first person, past tense, one narrator. And I'm very proud of that book, mostly because when I began writing it, I had no idea what I was getting into. And I wrote it as a secret because I wasn't sure I was ever going to finish it. And by the way, a side note, the two biggest problems with writing a book is one, selling it, and two, coming up with an ending. Most people never finish books because they can't come up with an ending. But that's a side story. That's another video for another channel. But from there, I went on to write another 10 novels. And there are two sort of themes throughout it. One being that Dylan shows up in pretty much every book. He might just be a poster on the wall. He might be the musician that other characters in other books are going to go see in concert. But he pretty much shows up in every book, even though it's a wide variety of stories, from a stockbroker who turns into a politician, to a soul stealer, to a kid who talks to dead presidents, to the last series that I've written, not sure I'm finished with it, but I've written about Townsend Seeger, who's an attorney who's a serial killer. And his best friend is an FBI agent. And Townsend's secretary is sort of mixed up with the Russian mob. And that book's called Russian Spies and Other Lies. And I've learned an awful lot in writing those novels. I mean, I had to learn what a query letter is, what an agent does, if I wanted to be traditionally published or self-published, how to format a book, how to format an ebook, how to make audio books, how to do a cover, how to market a book. It took a lot of research and a lot of work. And people will read a book and they don't understand all the work that went in to learning how to do that. And a few years back I had heart surgery and I had blood clots and I had some serious medical issues, and it kind of got me sidetracked because they put me on all this medication that gave me brain fog for quite a long time. And it's been difficult getting back into it. That, again, is another side note. But there was a lot of work that went into that. And I know you're saying, Mike, this is a photography channel. What the heck does any of that have to do with you being on YouTube and photography? Well, settle down, grasshopper. I'm going to tell you. It took me a while in my books. Now, I made the conscious effort of having Dylan in the books. It took me a little while to understand that really the theme throughout all my novels, even though they're very diverse, with very diverse characters, and yes, I got to believe that the last one I wrote, as far as technically writing, is vastly superior to the first one. In the last series, there are multiple narrators, multiple storylines, far more complex than the first book I wrote, because I became a better writer. Mike, what's this got to do with photography? Okay, all right. I learned in writing the books that really the theme was the character's main struggle in figuring out who they were and where their place is or was in society. And it took me a while to figure that out. It didn't matter whether it was a 10-year-old kid talking to dead presidents, or a lawyer who was a serial killer, or a musician who just wanted to play at Madison Square Garden. That was the theme. With my photography, I think once I got on YouTube, it forced me to study my photography in a different way. And I always knew that I shot a lot of different types of genres. I shoot landscapes, I shoot portraits, I shot a lot of sports. I shot pro sports, I shot amateur sports, tried my hand at street photography. I do seascapes. I photograph a lot of different things, which is why I use a Nikon Z8, because it can handle all those different genres. Would I love to have a Fuji 100S or a Hasselblad medium format? Yeah, but they're more niche cameras, and that's not really me. And so I figured that out. However, because I had to continually go back and look at some of my past photography to be able to put together these videos, what I discovered was there's a definite theme throughout all the years. When I began my photography, it was on a Pentax K1000. And I wish anybody who gets into photography could start on a Pentax K1000 film camera, because it forces you to learn the exposure triangle, meaning the relationship between your aperture, your shutter, and your ISO, and how you can control light through any one of those three things, and how you can blend those three to get the exposure that you're looking for. And also, in shooting film and developing your own film, it learned you how to tweak the exposure even more in how long or how short you developed your film, what kind of film you used, what kind of developer you used, what kind of paper you used to print it. All those things had effects. And it teaches you a whole lot. So by the time I got to digital cameras, and I went from the Nikon F5 to a D700, I already had a decent understanding of exposure. So from there, I could learn about lenses and the difference between a good lens versus a bad lens, and why I was having certain troubles getting images I wanted, even though I had a fair understanding of exposure, why I still wasn't necessarily getting what I wanted. And to some extent, I didn't know as much as I thought I did, and also I needed to upgrade my lenses. I had to go through that with my writing, and I had to go through it with my photography. And it became a lot easier for me to understand it with my photography because I had already gone through it with writing. And to some extent, I was going through it at the same time. So I could bounce back and forth and see it. But once I got to YouTube, then it became a lot clearer for me because I went back and looked at a lot of my old photographs. And the theme was, no matter what I was really photographing, was I shoot portraits. It's really that simple. I shoot portraits. Even with my bird photography, it's a single bird for a large extent, and it's a portrait. When I shoot sports, most of the time, yeah, I shot some action, but they were portraits. When I shoot landscapes, a lot of times they're a single subject, and it's a portrait. To some extent, it's a portrait. When I shoot seascapes, it's a sunrise, it's the sun. It's a moonrise, it's a moon. Occasionally, maybe it's a wave. But there's a single subject in most of them, and it's a portrait. And you may or may not see it that way, the way I see it. But it took me a while to figure that out. Just like it took me a while to figure out what it was I was really writing about, which was the personal demons inside of human beings and how they react to it. And you might say, well, why is that important that I know that? It might help you when it comes time to change camera bodies. Well, what does that camera body do? Or more importantly, do I need a new lens or not? If I'm a portrait shooter, do I need to get a 20mm lens. Well, you might, but you'll do it with the understanding of what type of landscapes you like to shoot. Like right now, I've been kicking back and forth between maybe adding another Voigtlander lens to my collection. And I've gone back and forth between the 75-1.5 for the Z system and the 40-1.2, partially because, and I've said this before, I mean, I love Voigtlander lenses. They just have a certain look to them. They have the colors, the skin tones that come off those things, in large extent, are just beautiful. I've owned a few Voigtlander lenses for the F-mount lenses. I had the 58-1.4 and I had the 40 F2. I sold them both. And now I just have the 50 F2 Apo, which I've talked about. And even though I think the reviews for the 40-1.2 are a little bit better, maybe, than the 75-1.5, the 75-1.5 is more of a portrait lens. And so discovering that in my own inner thoughts helped me decide that if I get one of those two, it'd probably be the 75 if I go down that path. Even though I have the 85-1.8, the Nikon one, and I love that lens. The 75 just has a little bit, from what I've seen, has a little bit different look to it. So I may or may not pick it up. I haven't decided. I may get it, keep it for a few months, sell it off. I don't know. But understanding who I am as a photographer, no matter what type of genre I'm shooting or how I process it, I still shoot portraits. And I learned that from being on YouTube. The other thing I learned is putting yourself out there and letting other people see your work. It's hard. It's hard. It's a lot more difficult than people might realize. There's a website called Fred Miranda. You might be familiar with it. I'm not being critical of the website. I go to it all the time. I like that website. So I'm not being critical of it. But there was a comment left on the Nikon forum about your favorite YouTube photographers. Now, I wasn't expecting to see my name there, so that's not why I was reading it. I was curious, and all the usual suspects were there. But there was a guy who left a comment about it's an illusion of how you can't be a photographer and be a YouTube photographer. His point was, you're either an artist or you're a shill. You're just trying to get clickbait. And I found that a little offensive. I've been monetized about, while I'm filming this, I think not quite 2 months. And I only have about 1,100 subscribers while I'm filming this. But I am now monetized, which was a goal of mine. So thank you for that. But I'm averaging earning between $5 and $6 a week for the work I put into this channel. $5 to $6 a week. So the notion that I'm doing this to get clickbait, to make money, is nonsense. There are big photographers on YouTube that make their living from it, and more power to them. But that doesn't mean that they're not photographers or they're just shills for a product. There are one or two of them that companies send them products and they'll go on and praise them and they get free cameras or free lenses and, without mentioning names, free stereo equipment. I get it. But to a large extent, to put everybody in that pile and say, wow, they're only doing it for clickbait and to make money, they're not real photographers, I find that offensive. I've spent a long time learning about photography. I've gone through 8 different camera bodies. I don't know how many lenses. Learning about photography, learning all the different techniques, learning different post-processing styles, black and white. I learned platinum printing which very few people know. I've gone from film to digital sensors. I've shot infrared. I've tried a lot of different things because I like learning a lot of different techniques and styles. But to suggest somehow that, well, you have this YouTube channel, so you're maybe not an artist, you're not a photographer, you're just shilling products. And I'm not just picking on the one person that left that comment on Fred Miranda. They're all over the place. But I think that those people are ignorant to the amount of work that it takes to get to this level. I'm sure people that have never written a book have no clue what gutter space is, or how you format an ebook, how you go about doing an audiobook, how you go about doing one of these YouTube videos. Nobody told me how to do it. I had to go on and research it. I figured that everything I've done, I've had to figure out on my own. I do my own website. You know, and some people probably say, you should start paying people to do these things because maybe they'll do a better job. Yeah, maybe. But I enjoy doing it. It's what I do. I like to create things. And after my heart surgery, I realized that even more. You go through something like that and it changes you. And I realized that whatever time I have left, I just want to create things. This channel has helped me realize that. It's helped me realize the theme in my photography. So I encourage you to go back and maybe think about and look at some of your old photographs and see if there is a theme to your work. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But if there is, it's sure going to help you in deciding your next lens, or if you need to upgrade your camera body or not. I already know. If somebody wants to send me a Fuji 100 S, I'd be more than happy to use it in certain situations. But I'm not going to take it to the soccer field and try to photograph my grandson playing soccer. Last night I took my grandson to soccer practice. And where he practices is near the Jupiter lighthouse. And I had already pre-visualized a shot in my head using my infrared camera of trying to get a shot of that lighthouse with the moon coming up, because I already knew the moon cycle, and I thought it might be something that I could use for photo of the month on my YouTube channel. So again, YouTube helped me in creating that image, because I probably wouldn't have thought about it had I not had this channel. So for someone to suggest, well, you're not a photographer because you have a YouTube channel, that's just crazy. It's just, I'm sorry, but it's just ignorance. That's what I wanted to talk about today. Go back and look at some of your images and see if there's a theme. It might help you understand yourself better. Maybe not, but I hope it does. Until next time, take good care. Hit the like and subscribe button. I'm trying to get better at asking people to do that. I should know because I used to be in sales. If you don't ask for the sale, you don't get it. Please hit the like and subscribe button. All right, till next time, take good care. Bye for now.